It's no doubt that for the past few years, the rise of more extreme views has led to many misunderstandings. Many of these misunderstandings occur due to lack of knowledge. When these misconceptions are targeted towards people, they are commonly known as stereotypes. Stereotypes have always been present in society, whether you notice it or not. Over the ages, stereotypes have developed due to the basis of literature, media, and simply just by word of mouth. To first understand what stereotypes are and their effects, we must first understand what defines a stereotype.
In social psychology, a stereotype is a fixed, overgeneralized belief about a particular group or class of people. By stereotyping, we infer that a person has a whole range of characteristics and abilities that we assume all members of that group have.
Thank you, Dr. McLeod, for that great definition. As you can see, our society confines individuals into groups and labels them with presumptions. The presumptions or stereotypes are always harmful to those that you categorize. These stereotypes force people to conform into society's expectations. To see where these harmful stereotypes are present in our lives, we will explore our generation's view of them.
Since I'm Asian, everyone thinks I'm real smart, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not really that smart. But since I'm Asian, they hold me to a higher standard. Because like everyone's like, yo, Nihal, you're Asian, you should be getting an A plus instead of an A, just like a normal A, you know what I'm saying? So like, if I wasn't Asian, people would be like, well, Nihal, that A is real good. But I'm held to a different standard, it's sad.
I faced no stereotypes in my life.
People said I was Korean one time.
I haven't faced any stereotypes.
Someone said I was Japanese, but I'm not Japanese.
My long hair made it hard for me to get a job when I was young.
For most people's impression that Chinese people always eat spicy food and super spicy food, but unfortunately, I'm one of the Chinese who don't eat spicy food.
It seems like many people around us every day have faced stereotypes in the past, or maybe they just haven't realized the stereotypes are present. So we ask, why exactly may this be?
Over time, we have absorbed stereotypes through our environment. Family, media, personal experiences, and many other things have made it so that we create stereotypes of others. All these stereotypes, ironically, are stereotyped into two categories: implicit and explicit. Implicit stereotypes are stereotypes that lay on an individual's subconsciousness, but they have no control or awareness over it. Explicit stereotypes are stereotypes that one is aware of holding, and aware that one is using to judge people.
Mystery solved! When stereotypes lay on one's subconscious, they aren't aware that they are stereotyping others. This works backwards as well, being that one may not realize they are being stereotyped. But now, where exactly do all these stereotypes come from in our lives?
When they are born, us babies have no innate bias towards others. A baby does not care if you're rich, poor, a man, a woman, or any other group of people.
However, at birth, us infantile beings are labeled the stereotype that you're either a boy or a girl. We are given blue and pink items as we grow older. We are constantly reminded in society that pink is for girls and blue is for boys. This early introduction of a stereotype may not seem like much, but it lays the foundation for one of the most impactful stereotypes, sexism. And somehow, from a simple classification of a baby, we are stuck with these stereotypes for the rest of our lives.
School is one of the most important influences on stereotypes. We become exposed to new people with many different lifestyles. As kids are very impressionable, what they pick up as they move through the education system sticks for a long time. With the introduction of social media, many kids feel they are more woke to their biases they place on others. They realize and question themselves about what they think of others and why. However, unlike younger children who don't realize their bias and older people that have cemented their bias, middle school to college age students have the ability to call themselves out and question stereotypes. They question the stereotypes in their environments, parents, teachers, and friends. Younger people can still build a bias, but try their hardest to eliminate as much of it as they can.
Many adults today have very general depictions of groups of people. Although this isn't true for all adults, today the majority of adults, mainly between 40 to 80, are more likely to implicitly stereotype certain groups of people. This means that they're subconsciously generalizing people without being aware of it. But why is this? What factors cause adults to think in such fixed ways? Well, for starters, adults in our generation did not have as much access to the internet and social media while growing up. Kids today are so stuck onto their mobile devices that they're constantly confronted on the internet with current day issues that are either explicitly or implicitly directed toward groups of people. Because of this, kids and teens are more likely to have open views on issues over stereotypes. Another key factor that correlates to the first one is environmental or family influence. We already know that adults today weren't exposed to social media as much as our generation was. Because of this, they were more likely to be influenced by their environment more than anything. While this is true for even kids and teens today, with social media now, we get a lot of our behavior and opinions on issues from people we look up to online. Although adults today have fixed mindsets, you can't completely blame them for it, since who knows, maybe 30 years from now, we might have the same stubborn thinking when it comes to this matter.
An interesting outtake. It seems many stereotypes stick with us as we age, but what exactly may some of these stereotypes be? And how have they harmed others in the past and the present? But before we get to that, a quick ad break.
And
you serve no purpose in life. Your purpose is to be bigoted and racist towards others.
hey, who said that?
Your purpose is to stereotype everyone you see. You should buy these glasses now! And give somebody else a non-biased view that's covered up by your severe bias. Because what are you here for? To worship me? Buy these glasses now! And I mean that with 100%, with 1,000%.
Alright, chill, bro. I'll get them, man. Whoa! Oh my god, I can't see anything! Now I can't be biased to anyone I see and make a bias off their appearance! Oh my god, man, I'm so sorry. Oh my god, I love your purse and your shoes. Oh, nice, cute dog. Man, I love these glasses so much. Oh.
Where's ours?
Slice of cheese, a meat liver, and a large Coke. I love these glasses so much. They removed all my stereotypes. I now have no bias when approaching others.
Call 1-800-727-GLAS and buy these glasses now! For the low price of $4.99, you can become completely blind but remove your fixed mindset.
One of the earliest examples of a stereotype that can be traced back to 1300 BCE is that of the Jewish. Enslaved in Egypt, after the pharaoh grew fearful of an uprising against his regime, he ordered that all firstborn sons be cast into a river. After years of oppression, Moses led the Jews out of Egypt. This event came to be known as Exodus. He then led them to Canaan, which is modern-day Israel. After years of peace in 733 BCE, the diaspora began with the Assyrian invasions, and eventually most Jews were enslaved in Israel or fled throughout parts of Europe. While spread throughout different parts of the world, people began to be frustrated with Jewish people and used them as scapegoats. Because of the church's rule of usury to be illegal for Christians, Jews were often moneylenders, which is where they got their stereotype that they are rich and greedy. This was, however, not without its restrictions. For example, the crown often heavily taxed Jews and forbade them from many areas of British life. Due to the already increasing segregation at the time, they were often exploited for their money, as for example, in the late 1200s, a series of laws had been created restricting the rights of Jewish people, one law being that they were not allowed to own land and after death their money went not to their children, but directly to the crown.
My heavens, what a lovely day today. I can't wait to get into the ghetto and collect my taxes from all these Jewish farmers. Ever since the king banned usury, they've been giving me less and less. And if they don't give me anything good this time, I'm gonna kick them out. King's orders. Hello there, anybody home?
Hello, yeah.
I'm looking for your taxes. Pay up or get out.
Wait, please, sir, I have nothing left. These news laws make it so hard for me to make money as a farmer. Especially as you guys took my 2 goats, 4 cows, and 5 3/4 of a goat. Please, sir, don't kick me out. How can I make money if I can't inherit anything from my parents? Everything I make goes to the crown.
Cheerio, lad. Get out then.
What
Hey, it's a swanky hat, yeah?
Jewish were placed into ghettos in their new countries and forced to label themselves as Jews. Others, saying that they took all the jobs and were stealing from people, had them as a group exiled from many parts of the world during the medieval and Renaissance periods. They were only accepted in a few places. However, this was taken advantage of by Hitler during World War II as he pushed many of Germany's issues onto the Jewish population. Many stereotypes
of Jewish appearance stem from the anti-Semitic propaganda pushed out by the Nazis in World War II. The idea that Jews are greedy is found in many famous pieces of literature such as Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice and Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist. A history of hatred from many past civilizations has shaped the modern Jewish stereotype to something highly offensive and ultimately untrue. The stereotype of Jews showed that stereotypes form over long periods of time, ranging from a generation's worth of time to thousands of years.
A great example of an infamous stereotype, and one that is very relevant to us as residents of Mercer Island. And now, onto another stereotype that we come into contact with quite often. The overgeneralization of Native American tribes stems from the history of colonization of the Americas. It first began when Christopher Columbus labeled the native tribes as Indians because of their similar skin tone. He had initially believed that he had arrived in India and found a route around America, but had just arrived in North America.
As soon as I arrived in the Indies, in the first island which I found, I took some of the natives by force, in order that they might learn and might give me information of whatever there is in these parts. And so it was that they soon understood us, and we them, either by speech or by signs, and they have been very serviceable.
As he began to explore and exploit the Americas more and more, he continued to refer to the indigenous peoples as Indians.
The Indians are so naive and free with their possession that no one who has not witnessed them would believe it. When you ask for something they never say no. To the contrary, they offer to share with anyone. They would make fine servants. With 50 men, we could subjugate them all and make them do whatever you want.
The misclassification was then further pushed when the US government labeled the hundreds of autonomous tribes as Indians. Only until the 1960s were they called Native Americans out of respect. Even so, the genre of cowboys vs. Indians is one that is popular in older media. Many films and games exist that still classify all indigenous peoples as Indians. For over 500 years, our society has classified millions of people with the singular word, so much so that the word is still commonly used. Although native tribes are generally okay with the term Indian, it is still not okay to generalize a group of people in order to easily categorize them. Today, more than 12 states do not celebrate Columbus Day, and many counties no longer misrepresent it in their celebrations. More progressive views focus on the spreading of misinformation that surrounds Columbus Day.
Today, we also acknowledge the painful history of wrongs and atrocities that many European explorers inflicted on tribal nations and indigenous communities. It is a measure of our greatness as a nation that we do not seek to bury these shameful episodes of our past, that we face them honestly, bring them to the light, and we do all we can to address them.
Thus, Christopher Columbus created an uncivilized, savage, and unintelligent misrepresentation of the indigenous peoples. By using the word Indians, this view is pushed throughout the westward expansion and eventually into modern media. Until recently, we haven't looked back on it, and have just accepted these demeaning stereotypes towards Native Americans. Wow, I don't know about you guys, but I like that guy's voice. Has a nice tone to it. Anyways, fun fact, we reside on Duwamish land that once belonged to these native tribes. And now, on to one of the most impactful stereotypes in American history.
Slavery started in America in 1619 when a ship called the White Lion brought 20 Africans to Jamestown, Virginia. This marks the beginning of an explosion of stereotypes against African people in America. From there, they were seen as physically inferior and put on the earth to serve Caucasians. This stereotype came to be because for people, Africa was significantly less developed than themselves and saw them as barbaric. They were treated horribly on plantations because many slave owners did not see them as humans because of the color of their skin. Eventually, when many slaves were freed due to the Civil War, they were still being treated poorly in society. The stereotype of black inferiority was being backed by the Ku Klux Klan. The first KKK emerged after the Civil War and planned targeted violence against African American leaders. They were fueled by the belief in white supremacy and black inferiority. A more obscure stereotype that resulted from the slave trade was that African people could not feel pain. Since slaves were put through horrible conditions on ships, they became tougher. Even though this stereotype was true about slaves, their lack of pain did not come directly from the color of their skin. Another stereotype was that their brains were not as developed as white people's. Many people held this opinion, even Thomas Jefferson, who said this about the topic.
Blacks, whether originally a distinct race or made distinct by time and circumstances, are inferior to the whites in endowments both of body and mind.
It was believed that since the lack of brain development, they lacked the ability to think abstractly. This was used as evidence on why black people should be slaves. This unfair treatment led to the African Americans being underrepresented and still to this day has visible effects on their populations in America. During the Great Depression, due to the scarcity of jobs, almost half of all African Americans were out of work. In the North, many whites called for the firing of African Americans as long as there weren't whites out of work. Racial violence increased, especially in the South, and African Americans were left as the scapegoat. The increase in racial discrimination was due to the fact that the Civil War had just ended 60 years ago, and African Americans had not yet received all the rights as we know today. Moving forward, the next laws that had a negative impact on African Americans were Nixon's war on drugs. Law enforcement disproportionately target low-income communities and communities of color. Because of the lack of opportunity for these communities, African Americans and Latinos have incarceration rates way above any other race, 80% in federal prison for drug use and 60% in state prisons. These laws stem from the decades of Jim Crow laws that were in place until the 1960s. Modern-day stereotypes stem from the criminalization of these groups from a young age. We are taught to look at people based on status rather than personality. This doesn't help when the system neglects low-income families and continues to disproportionately target Latinos and African Americans. This overgeneralization of groups has continued on for decades, even when society recognizes the problems.
Thank you, Santa, for the Christmas present. Wow, an Apple Watch. Thanks, Mom. That's a great watch. I bet it was made in China. Ow, what the heck? Did you buy this from the homeless guy? I bet he used the money to buy drugs. Ow, what the heck? This feels worse than when I got AIDS from sitting on the toilet.
Do you need the perfect gift for your loved ones this holiday season? Then get them this definitely legit Apple Watch. It delivers haptic feedback to the user each time they say something unsavory. 3 strikes, you're out for the low price of $9.99. Call 1-800 and buy yours now. We are not responsible for any shock-related heart issues that may come with this purchase.
The Opium Wars fought in China led to major debt. Due to immense poverty, many Chinese people came to California during the gold rush in 1848. But after a crop failure in China, around 20,000 Chinese people seeking jobs came to California. This influx of job-seeking immigrants caused a stereotype to be placed upon them. This stereotype is that immigrants move in order to steal jobs from the residents of that area. Violence occurred between the white miners and the Chinese miners due to the belief of them stealing their jobs. During this violence, a tax was placed on foreign miners, where they would pay $3 every month, or equivalent to around $100 in 2021. By 1870, $5 million was collected from these foreign miners, or a jaw-dropping $180 million today.
What do you think they're doing? Buddy? What? Get out. Get out, America. What? I came here fairly. I don't care. Get out. What? Really? Yeah. Really? Ah! Yeah. Chinese fire drill.
Later, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 would ban Chinese immigrants from entering America and required Chinese people living in the U.S. to carry documents with them. This discrimination, based on race, lasted for many more years, and we still see glimpses of it today. This stereotype of Chinese people stealing jobs later expanded to every immigrant coming to steal jobs.
For centuries, babies have been dressed in white until the age of 6. Both genders also wore dresses for practicality. It wasn't until the 19th century that pastel colors became popular for baby clothes. As time went on, culture in the West picked out gender-specific colors for clothes, which were pink and blue. The colors are initially supposed to match the color of the baby's eyes and hair. Blue for blue eyes and or blonde hair, pink for brown eyes and or brown hair. Another way people dressed their babies was based on their gender. Blue for girls because it was considered dainty, and pink for boys because it was considered a bolder and stronger looking color. Gender stereotypes are generalizations about what men and women are like, and mainly derives from the distribution of men and women to social roles, both at home and at work. There has long been a gender division of labor, existing in the domestic sphere and in workplaces. Men are characterized as being in control and taking charge, while women play the caretaker or assistant role. These divisions in gender give rise to gender stereotypical conceptions.
I sure do hope that baby is okay. This next one's a real doozy. One might even say disconcerting.
During the 1980s AIDS epidemic, homophobia and sexism were widespread as misinformation spread through public mediums. For example, despite the fact that homosexual men had been one of the demographics most affected by the condition, campaigns still refused to address homosexuals directly and communicate clearly to them ways in which homosexual sex could be made safer. Instead, they preferred to deal in visual metaphors and allusions aimed at an abstract general public. Misinformation was spread by explaining that it was more likely to receive AIDS from same-sex intercourse rather than opposite-sex intercourse. Thus, the fear for toilets began. People began to believe that AIDS could be spread from toilets. Masterson Johnson warned that AIDS could lurk on toilet seats. A sex therapist, Helen Singer Kaplan, wrote a book, The Real Truth About Women and AIDS, worrying that condoms weren't enough and even kissing was a risk. The fear that came out from the AIDS epidemic led to discrimination against LGBTQ and some of the discrimination that we see today.
Hey, Mr. Willicke.
Oh, yeah.
Can I ask you a couple quick questions?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
So what are your thoughts on people being stereotyped around the world?
Well, I believe that this injustice in our world is having severe effects on society everywhere. Yeah.
So then why do you stereotype French people?
Mr. Johnson. Hey, is that an iPad?
Hey, Mr. Johnson, just wanted to know, why do you stereotype French people, and what is your take on stereotype?
Well, first off, I think they never should have invented quiche. Mr. Willicke brings it to lunch and it stinks up our office every time. We sort of diss the French people, but not legitimately, but more as a running joke. They are basically a bunch of stooges throughout history. As for stereotypes as a whole, they have harmed many innocent people in the past and continue to do so to this day. We try our hardest to inform you all about these harmful stereotypes and to avoid using them. They are never good, even if they have a positive attribute. Stereotypes all carry offensive histories that have formed over varying periods of time.
Okay, well, thank you for your time. I feel like having scrambled eggs right now.
Somebody help me!
Just want to know, what... Ow, you're so... Johnson, what...
Okay, yeah, now restart. I'm not there with the toilet cleaner, but my fault. Hey!
Just want to know, what...
You look so
I always say...
We're gonna have Mr. Johnson's final moments. So Mr. Johnson's final moments is I just whack him. Bash him on the bowl. I wait for the oil to start coming up. Don't start recording yet, it's not like actually doing anything important. My dog is going crazy.